Traveling internationally can be entertaining, exciting, educational, enlightening, but it can also be really expensive. So if you have an upcoming trip, you need to avoid financial mistakes that can cost you a lot of money without providing any return. In this video, I'll teach you all the money lessons I've learned over my many years of international travel. I'll cover the steps you can take to minimize fees and avoid unnecessary expenses. And then keep watching because I'll go through some of the major money mistakes people make and show you how to avoid them. If you like this type of content, I hope you'll hit the like button and subscribe. And with that out of the way, let's get started. Whenever I have a trip planned, I research a few things before I go so I can be prepared. For each country you're traveling to, you need to know 1. The currency and exchange rate of the country. Being familiar with what the money looks like and how much it's worth will help you know how much cash to withdraw from a money machine, how much an item will cost you when you're shopping, and whether you're getting the right change back from a transaction. For the exchange rate, it's best to memorize the rate and get used to doing the conversion in your head. But sometimes that's difficult, so it's also helpful to have a currency exchange app that can help you evaluate prices on the spot. I use the free version of My Currency Converter. But if you look in the App Store, there are many other good options as well. 2. The role cash plays in the everyday transactions of the country. Most countries accept credit cards these days for almost all transactions. So in that case, you're better off not carrying a bunch of cash with you. To be honest, I've traveled in many countries with little to no cash, and I've always been fine. But this is not universally the case, so do a quick Google search to see what you should expect in the specific country you're visiting. If the country widely accepts credit cards, then you probably aren't going to need much cash. But if it's a more cash-based economy, then at least you'll be prepared. 3. The tipping culture of the country. If you're from the United States or Canada, it's important to know that the tipping culture you're used to is not universal. Many foreign countries pay their service industry much higher wages than the US does, and many restaurants and other service sectors already have a service fee included in their prices. In some countries, the culture is to not tip at all or to simply round up the bill a bit. While the custom will vary from country to country, the high rate of tipping we're used to is definitely not the norm in most other countries. So again, do a quick Google search so that you know the tipping culture of the country you're going to be visiting. 4. The common scams that tourists might experience. This information is usually readily available, and by knowing what to watch out for, you can protect yourself and your money. For example, I recently visited a country where the taxi industry is known for taking advantage of tourists. They often fail to turn on the meter, and they'll take an unnecessarily long route to your destination. I hate conflict, so rather than deal with that, I relied on public transportation, and I arranged rides through my hotel when necessary. There are a couple of extra things you can do at home before you leave that will make things easier for you once you're traveling. Before your trip, you need to 1. Load your wallet with the necessary financial tools. Whenever I travel, I always make sure to have a few specific things in my wallet. First, I bring at least 2 credit cards with me, so that if I have any issues with one card, I have a backup. I make sure both cards are Visa or MasterCard because American Express isn't as universally accepted. And if I want to bring an American Express card too, I'll do that, but it'll be my 3rd card. I only bring credit cards that offer free foreign transaction fees, and you'll know if this is the case by checking the benefits of your cards. If your credit card does not offer free foreign transaction fees, this means that they'll charge you roughly 3% on all purchases that you make while out of the country. This can add up to a lot of money, and while you're using the card and getting assessed the fee, they don't give you any warnings or alerts that that's happening. You won't find out until you get home and look at your credit card bill, and then you'll see that you've been charged more than you thought you were paying. So check your cards, and if you don't have a card that offers this, you should consider getting one before your trip. If you need suggestions on which cards to get, let me know in the comments. In addition to the credit cards, I also bring a debit card with me, and I make sure that I know the 4-digit PIN. I only use the debit card for ATM cash withdrawals, never for purchases. And I'll explain a bit later in this video the type of ATMs you'll want to look for to avoid the extra fees and terrible exchange rates. Also, for both the debit card and the credit cards, let the relevant banks know when and where you're traveling so they don't mistakenly block your transactions. Depending on your bank or credit card company, this may not be necessary, but it's smart to at least check with them in case it is. Finally, because I travel often, I actually have leftover currency from a few different locations. If I'm traveling somewhere that uses a currency that I have a little stash of, I'll just bring what I have left with me so I can avoid the hassle of having to get money once I get there. For example, if I'm going to Europe, I'll just bring along the euros that I already have so that I'll have a little cash with me just in case. I make a point of not spending it though, because it really is just a backup for me in case I encounter a place that won't take credit cards. If I don't have to use it, I'll bring it back home again, and then I'll have a little bit of cash ready to go next time I go to Europe. If you'd feel better having a little foreign cash with you too, you could consider getting a little bit from your home bank before you leave. I don't recommend getting hundreds of dollars worth of foreign currency from the bank, but if having a little bit of the foreign cash in your wallet makes you feel better when you land, then you should do it. It's also worth mentioning what you probably should not have in your wallet. When you travel, it's best to go as lightly and simply as you possibly can. There's no need to carry a huge wallet with every single credit card you own, your Home Depot card, your library card, your supermarket rewards card, your Social Security card, etc. Instead, get a small travel wallet like this and bring what's absolutely essential, such as your identification, 2 or 3 credit cards, a debit card, and if you have a little bit of cash, you can throw that in there too. 2. Set up online banking and credit card accounts. For each of the cards you're bringing with you, it can be really helpful to be able to access those accounts online. That way you can easily check your balances, keep an eye on transaction history, and immediately alert your bank or credit card company if something goes wrong. 3. Set up a digital wallet like Apple Pay. In addition to the 2 physical credit cards I bring, I like to have all my other credit cards available in my Apple Wallet. This gives me peace of mind in case my wallet is stolen or I need another type of credit card for some reason. Also, most countries use the handheld credit card readers that accept Apple Pay, and it's safer to tap and pay rather than to give your physical card to a person. It's probably clear by now that I think using credit cards rather than cash is the wiser financial decision. Carrying a lot of cash around with you can be cumbersome, stressful, and it can even be dangerous, so I highly advise against it. And if you're pickpocketed and your cash is stolen, it can't be replaced, it's just gone. Why take that risk? Plus, even if you aren't pickpocketed, I think it's stressful to have to worry about the security of your cash throughout the trip. My recommendation is to use credit cards for all your major purchases and just to keep a little bit of cash on hand in case you encounter a situation where they require cash, say a bathroom fee. When using your credit card though, there's one important thing you need to remember. If they ask you which currency you want to pay in, whether US dollars or the currency of the country you're in, always choose to pay in the currency of the country that you're in. Never accept the dynamic conversion that they're offering because the exchange rate you'll receive is not good. You'll get a much better exchange rate from your own bank. An easy way to remember this is to think of the old saying, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. In other words, when in a foreign country, pay in the same currency everyone else is paying in. This can save you a lot of money in the long run. Now that I've covered what you should do both before and during your trip, I want to talk about the costly financial mistakes that tourists often make, and I want to show you how to avoid them. 1. Avoid money and currency exchange offices. While you're traveling, you'll likely see money and currency exchanges everywhere, from the moment you land at the airport, at every tourist spot you visit, and up until the moment you catch your flight home. There's a reason for this. These exchanges make a huge profit at your expense. Unless you want to pay a steep commission or be subject to a terrible exchange rate during the money transaction, I suggest you avoid these places at all costs. But what if you see a no commission fee sign? Is it okay then? The answer is no. Don't let them trick you by advertising no commission fee because they'll make up for it with an even worse exchange rate. Trust me, these businesses are just there to make a profit, so avoid all of them. 2. Avoid private ATMs and look for bank ATMs instead. If you need cash, then an ATM is your best option, but not just any ATM. There are many private ATMs that target tourists by charging high commissions and using different tricks to try to get more money from you. Thankfully, you can spot these private ATMs by knowing what to look for. Any ATM that is labeled as Euronet should be avoided. Any ATM that is attached to a currency exchange office should be avoided. Any ATM that has a generic name attached rather than the name of a well-known bank should be avoided. Instead, find an ATM that is connected to a bank. The fees should be much more reasonable, and the location is often safer because there's almost always surveillance cameras. Plus, you can go into the bank if you encounter any issues. In case you're forced to use a private ATM, here are a few things to watch out for. 1. Check for a skimmer. These are much more likely to be found on private ATMs because they often lack the surveillance that you'll find at a bank ATM. 2. When they ask you how much money you want, they'll usually only offer large denominations on the first screen, which, as I explained, is not a good idea. They do this because the more you withdraw, the more money they make. The solution is to select the other amount option and then choose the smaller amount that you actually want. 3. You'll get to a screen where they ask you if you want to do a conversion to dollars. As I've said, you never want to convert to your home currency because the exchange rate they'll give you will be terrible. But they try to trick you by making the accept conversion the prominent button, so it's going to feel strange to decline. But you know better now, so make sure you select decline and proceed from there. 4. Get the total amount of money you need in your first transaction rather than making multiple smaller transactions because they'll likely charge you a fee every time you do it. And remember that these fees are on top of the fees that your bank may charge. 5. Don't use these private ATMs to check your balance because many of them will charge an extra fee for this. If you have your online banking set up, just check that way instead. 3. Don't use a credit card at an ATM. If you use an ATM, make sure you only use a debit card there. Using a credit card at an ATM is a huge mistake because you'll be charged for a cash advance fee and be subject to a high interest rate that is charged from the moment you get the cash. So use your credit cards for all the purchases that you can, and if you must get cash, use your debit card at a bank ATM. I hope this video was helpful and provided you with the information you need to make smarter financial decisions on your next trip. Let me know in the comments if you have any additional questions. I'd also love to hear if you have any stories about financial mistakes you've made along the way or financial tips that you wish you'd known earlier. If you like this type of content, hit the like button, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any future videos. It really does help the channel. Until next time, happy travels.